Hello there. Welcome to the Great Stories Podcast. I am Ryan, your host for the show, and also the founder of the show. I do it all, folks. And what you're listening to is the Great Stories Podcast. And what I do here is sit across the table from another human being. And we hear about their life story. We get to know who they are, some of the ups, some of the downs. But most importantly, we find out how they came to know Christ and what it looks like in the context of the real life to follow Him. I don't edit these interviews. We don't practice them ahead of time. This is just a real conversation, a real authentic conversation between two people. And the goal is that you, sitting on the third side of this table, will get a peek into how powerful, how amazing, and how just world-conquering the love of Christ is, even in the context of just one person's life. It's incredible. Every story is different, but the themes of who Jesus is the same. And my hope is that you're just blessed to hear somebody's unique perspective on that whole thing. If you like what you hear, and I hope you do, if you do in fact like it, give it a thumbs up on your Spotify or a 5-star rating on your Apple player, whatever you listen to it on. Just give it a good rating, and if you really like it, share it with somebody. If someone says something that resonates with you, you can share it and just say, listen to just this one part. You can pull out a little bit. Either way, my goal is not for the Great Stories Podcast or Ryan Weber to become this great podcast. I don't want that. My goal is for the message that these people say, that the love of this Christ gets out. And hey, if you can do that by sharing the show and it happens to grow in the process, that would be awesome. Another way you can support the show is by coming on it. You might be saying to yourself, I'm not that interesting. I promise you, there's a million people out there just like you who would think you're the most interesting person in the world. Believe me. So come on the show. Shoot me an email at thegreatstoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook. Just look for The Great Stories Podcast. You can see what's going on there. All right, so I just wrapped up a conversation with a full-time missionary to the country of Japan, formerly known as Jessica Gerards. She's now named Jessica Thompson. She just got hitched a little while ago. Amazing story. Really, the word that comes to mind when I think about this story is abiding. This is somebody who has basically decided to take their whole life and just put it on the line and go to make disciples for Christ. Amazing perspective, really cool stuff. We talked about all kinds of things in this one, but you don't want to hear me talk about it now. You just want to hear the interview. So I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Jessica Thompson as much as we enjoyed recording it. Here we go. Jessica, not Gerards.
Right. Thompson now.
Thompson. That's going to take some getting used to. Because now I feel like you and your sister have you've been the Gerards.
Right.
And that's just what you are. So now it's like,
yeah.
Okay, so what do we... Yeah, we don't even know what to do.
Right.
Crud. Like, we never got your names right before.
Right.
So now,
enough of an issue there.
Yes. For those listening, I'm speaking to a twin.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jessica. Well, I got your name wrong a month ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
I saw you from a distance at the church.
You know what? I think both names, I respond to both names now. Half the time I don't realize when it's the wrong name, honestly.
Well, you corrected me. So I'm pretty sure. Darn it. I was like 50-50.
Yeah.
But as soon as you were like 10 feet closer, I was like, dang it.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. I think you were pretty good at telling us apart. I feel like, well, our desks were next to each other. Working in the office together. So I feel like you got pretty good.
There's very seldomly a set of twins, I think, that are legit identical if you spend any amount of time around them. There's another set at Amplify, two brothers, and I could spot them from a mile.
Oh, really?
Like it's not even.
Yeah.
You're not even close.
Yeah.
Although they recently got the same haircut, which I'm like, why did you guys do this?
Me and Rachel would always try to kind of help people out by, one of us have a little bit of a longer haircut, or trying to wear different colors, or at least a different bag or shoes, or
Did you ever play jokes on people?
No,
I think I've asked you that. No.
We probably didn't, take advantage of it as much as other twins do, but there were a couple times where we kind of tried to switch, but honestly the people that were close to us were pretty good at telling us apart, so it never really worked.
Okay. You didn't go to each other's classes?
We did one time, but I think there was a test going on or something, and and I think Rachel didn't want me to take her test, so she was like, no, we're switching back, no way. She didn't trust me.
Dang.
But yeah, so we never actually did.
That's funny. I feel like I would have had a good time with a twin.
Although potential.
My parents would have to got a much bigger shovel to feed both of us with. I think just the one. Yeah. The one wouldn't work.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is I think the two of you are very different people also.
Yeah.
And that's more apparent than what you look like. It's like even any conversation, you'll be like, okay, these
personality, little differences, even in the way that we talk, or generally our paths have been somewhat similar until I got married. Somewhat similar.
I have questions about that. Like, how does this work now? Okay.
I know twin dynamics change, but but there are minor differences that people pick up on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get into that then, because I've heard your story. When you were an intern, I think you kind of gave a testimony thing at one of our staff meetings. It was, and it was cool. So you're a Japan missionary. You basically live there full time, indefinitely, as last I heard, and you came to America to get hitched.
Right.
And then you're leaving again.
Right.
So I caught you in this narrow window of time where I get to hear your story. This is great. Because I was trying to think of a way to talk to you over Zoom or something, and then I saw you. I was like,
perfect.
What? Wait a minute.
This is perfect.
Yeah. So take us back. Tell me your story. How'd you get here? How'd you become this person?
Right. Well, I grew up in Fremont. Not too far from here. Yeah. And at that time, my family was, Christian by name. And so, I did believe in a God. I believed, I prayed at night, very generally. But I didn't really know, who God was. I didn't know, his desires or what he would want from my life or anything like that. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. I also was very shy. Me and my sister, we were both very, very shy. Okay. It was hard to get us to talk to strangers, especially. But let's see. When I think I was about 11 years old, I picked up this little book. It was called What on Earth Am I Here For? And it was a booklet version of the what's his name? The Purpose-Driven Life.
Okay. Rick Warren.
Rick Warren, right. It was a little booklet that he wrote kind of explaining the purpose of life. And I remember, I think I was 11, and I picked that up and I read it, and I remember just being so it hitting me, and I thought I had this overwhelming sense that wow, my life is not my own. At that time, I don't think I understood the gospel fully. I didn't know how, it affected my life daily by any means.
How old were you in this?
11.
11 years old.
I think I was 11.
Okay.
I think it must have been sixth grade or something. And, but I remember hearing, in that book, it's written this life is not about you. And, I definitely did not think that the world revolved around me by any means. And I hated the spotlight. So
Okay.
I think hearing that, there was something in me that it was such a freeing feeling of oh wow, this life, it's not about me. I was created for this purpose. It's not about, my reputation. And I probably felt that freedom because, I was very concerned with how I was viewed by people.
Okay.
And my reputation, my successes, my whatever. So something was freeing about that. But honestly, so I read that book, and I had that moment, but it didn't really I wasn't super connected to a church or anything like that.
Okay. Were you guys going anywhere or?
Yeah. Occasionally, very occasionally we'd go, to a different church in Fremont. And, but yeah, it wasn't anything super, consistent.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of just, I did have some other Christian kind of figures, coaches in my life. But it wasn't until college that I really, I think God opened my eyes to see who he was. So I went to school in LA, and I wasn't really looking to be a part of a, Christian group or anything like that.
Is it university or?
Yeah. UCLA.
Okay.
So I went in just kind of, I wanted to know more about God, but I wasn't really interested in joining a club or anything, because I'm shy and I don't want to be with a bunch of people who already know what they're talking about, and I don't know what I'm talking about.
being the new person in a group,
right,
in a club,
right, and I
worst.
I didn't know anything about the Bible, I knew very generally about it, but but I met someone in a class who invited me. And it was one of those situations where he kind of I told him because I'm a people pleaser, so I told him he told me about this Bible study, and I told him that I would go, but in the back of my head I was I probably won't go. But he had already given my number to the Bible study leader or something like that, so I felt pressure to go. So,
okay.
So that's why I went. And honestly, yeah, that year, my first year, just being around other Christians and people who I don't know, it wasn't just Christian by name, they seemed to truly believe in this God and experience him personally, and
okay.
That really was very different than what I knew.
So let me pause you there.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What does that look like when you see someone actually living it differently, in a college context?
Right.
That's good to.
Right. Well, for one, it wasn't just a Sunday thing. I did go to church. There was a church somewhat nearby my university, and we would go to church together. I'd get rides from the people who had cars. But throughout the week, it was just the community was unlike any other community I'd known. They the way that they interacted with each other. I remember this is just such a small thing, but it was it made a difference to me. During finals week, everyone's just cramming and studying for hours on end. And I remember one of the seniors who I barely knew came to our dorm study room and just unloaded a big bag of I don't know, Trader Joe's snacks or something. And I was why did this senior, the cool seniors, right. And I'm the lame freshman. Why would they just go out of nowhere and just, bless us with all these snacks? And there was just something different. And then even Friday nights, I remember we would get together and just have times of sharing and singing worship music. And it just seemed and people would, share their issues with each other, the
Real
things
talk.
that they were going things they were going through, being very honest, not having to put up this facade of a certain image of who you are. And I think especially as a freshman, a lot of you feel pressure to do that because you want to look cool or look smart or look like you know what you're doing. And so I just saw authenticity kind of and I think that struck me. Well,
that's refreshing in a lot of ways, because I think church in general sort of has a bad rap
Mm-hmm.
for being kind of a little pretentious.
Right.
Totally. Kind of phony and polished on the outside, but you're just as bad as everybody. Yeah.
Right.
And I think, that like authentic thing is really attractive.
Right.
When you can find it.
Right.
So, and it's cool that you found it at college of all places.
And I wasn't even looking for it.
It was looking for you.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, definitely. And even like with my insecurity of like, like I said, I was like very shy, but just like being welcomed so warmly. And there just wasn't this like hierarchy of, like people, different statuses. It's kind of just like, you're just welcomed and like come as you are. And you're like loved on. And so
that's
that
great.
Spoke to me. Yeah.
And this was this in the context of a club or?
Yeah. So this was with Crew.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got involved in the first few weeks of school. And like I said, I wasn't looking for it, but someone invited me to a Bible study. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Who was that? Can you shout him out?
His name is Andrew.
Good job, Andrew.
He was a little bit older.
Good job, Andrew.
Yeah, and he's like he and his wife is also my friend, and they're actually on my support team, and so
that's so cool
with them.
That's great. Wow, so they can actually continue to like celebrate in the fruit of just inviting you to. That's so cool.
Yeah,
wow, that's
definitely. Great. But yeah, so that week or that first year of college, I think that's when I first started to like, just honestly, just even like read the Bible at all. Before that, I just hadn't. And I really felt like it was God opening my eyes to who He is. I think I'd always known that, Jesus died to save us, from our sins or save us from hell. But I didn't realize that, He didn't just die to save us from something. He died to save us for something. Like there's this great purpose to our life. And we're in this story that, God has been writing since the beginning of time. And, like history's headed towards somewhere and we get to play a part in that.
Yeah.
And that just, changed my whole perspective on life and myself and who I want to be. And,
wow.
Yeah.
It's God didn't save us just so we could like put our feet up and feel good about it.
Right.
Like there's more going on here. Like we get to be a part of something.
Right.
Yeah. So is there a spot that you can point to say what like this is when it became real? Was there like a one moment, or was it like a graying kind of thing, or how does that work for you?
Yeah. I don't know if I can put my finger on one spot, but honestly, it was those quiet mornings, every morning waking up and just like spending time with God.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a funny image, but I have something like to compare it to. So like when I was really little, I had like so many like sinus issues. I don't even know what the deal was, but I would have stuffy noses often.
Okay.
And I remember my dad, like sometimes I wouldn't be able to sleep, and my dad would take me and he would wrap me up in a blanket and take me into the front. We had like this little front porch, sit on a chair and, plop me on his lap and just hold me so that I could, breathe the cold air, those, the night air.
Yeah.
And try to, just help me to breathe. And I remember so many nights, like my ear would be like pressed up against his chest.
Yeah.
And if I was like quiet enough, like I could hear his heartbeat, and I kind of think of the same kind of thing with like spending time with God, like,
wow.
In the mornings, like if I would, I would read the Bible, and at that time there's a lot that I didn't understand. And, but I would just sit with the words and, pray and it kind of silence myself. And I feel like through that, like I could hear God's heartbeat in a way, like just reading the stories of Jesus and, just what He's been doing throughout time. It's like, I just started to understand what He's about, and, what He would have for my life, and so it wasn't a moment. It was like kind of born through just the quiet moments.
Yeah. I love that, hearing God's heartbeat. Have you used that before?
Well,
Have you?
Well, I mean, I thought of it recently.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Use
just
that
like
often. I'm always looking for stuff like that. That's really good. No, I love it. Well, because that's exactly, it's such a perfect analogy for Scripture, because that we talk about God's heart for His people and how much He loves and all that, and the tenderness. Okay, here's a rabbit trail. We're gonna take
Let's go.
So I follow The Rock on Instagram.
Wonderful.
And you could say a lot of things about The Rock, but there's occasionally he posts pictures of him with his daughters, and they're tiny, because he's this giant, jacked, like huge guy, and he posts pictures of him like holding a tiny teacup with his little girl on his lap, and it's like it's the most cute contrast, because this is literally like a savage caveman.
Yeah. Right.
But at the same time, this little girl has no fear of him, and it's this tender moment between the two of them, and that's how we are with God all the time. And I mean, the little girl compared to The Rock is incredible, but us compared to God, and putting our ear just without any fear to His chest and listening to His heartbeat, like through His word and through prayer and worship. And I think it's beautiful. That's good. I'm going to steal that. I'll give you credit though, but
No, you don't have to.
That's really good. And this is all your first year of college?
That's kind mostly, of I mean, of course, like there was no moment of like arriving, right? But during the first year, I think it was, that was the first year that I started to like, read the Bible, or even just think more about like how God affects my like daily life, right. Before it was kind of just very segmented, I think. But during that year also, I think I kind of realized our purpose as God's people, to, glorify Him and how there's so many people in the world who like don't have that opportunity to hear the gospel. And so that was also when I first started to think about like going overseas, to places where, there isn't as much like, opportunity for exposure to the gospel.
Interesting. That's kind of where it didn't take you long to go that direction.
It didn't. I think it didn't, because like, I think like, when I would open up the Bible, I would see like how important it is, like how God values so much, like people's, all the peoples of the earth praising Him. And so it made sense to me. And of course there were like lots of, I don't know, I would listen to lots of sermons, and it wasn't just, me and realizing this, but I had a lot of input from other people, and talks about missions and such.
Right on. So then what was the rest of college like? Just a growth process in that? Did your sister go to the same college as you?
We went to the same college. Okay. We never like try to do the same thing, but we always end up doing, until I got married, we would always end up doing the same thing. So, we did go to the same college. We majored in the same thing. She'll always say that I copied her. I really didn't.
Well, she's likely listening right now in the future. But you can fight over it when you see each other.
Yeah, definitely. So my sister was also kind of there and kind of going along a similar path that I was. And let's see, college. Lots of like growing. I majored in psychobiology, so I had lots of classes about science and the brain. Psychobiology. It sounds more it's like psychology and biology. Okay. It's like behavioral neuroscience.
The biology of the brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a difficult sounding subject.
It sounds, I mean, I don't even know what I remember right now. It's been a while, but I enjoyed it. Okay. And that was really fun. And I think it was a time also of just like being outside my comfort zone. Not in terms of like just being away from family or something. I think I was like more naturally like okay with that aspect, but just like I said, I was very shy. And so, yeah, it was there were a lot of times of, stepping outside my comfort zone and, talking with people that I naturally would be uncomfortable with. Talking with stuff like that.
Nice. And then when was it that you knew, like, maybe not exactly where, but like, I'm going to be a missionary. Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
That hasn't happened for me. I mean, it depends on how you define. We'll get to that. Anyway, go.
Right. Let's see. So throughout college, I think I was. So we have a lot of international students at UCLA, and so they would come to study. And I remember meeting a lot of international students, and as I would just get to know them and just like talk about life and I realized that a lot of them, especially coming from like the Asian countries, didn't even know one Christian, didn't have one Christian friend, one person that could like tell them about Jesus at all. And so I think that's probably when it first, I started to think more practically about like going overseas, but also at the same time, I didn't want to, because like it's just like the less comfortable route. I mean, after like studying for 4 years and like I don't know, the typical path would be like to continue with those studies or to get a job or here in America, and so this like missionary idea was like in the back of my head as something like I think I could do, I think I would like to do, but it's uncomfortable and there's like safer options.
Of course.
It was always there. And then I actually took the class Perspectives. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it.
Okay.
Yes. I've been invited to it.
Okay. It's an awesome class.
Intensely invited to it multiple times. Almost, I feel like I'm being bullied. Almost.
People get like so passionate about it.
I know.
But there's truly a reason for it, because
now you're doing it too. Okay.
No.
Whatever.
I'm not going to pressure you, but I will talk about my experience with it. But
go.
It was so great. It wasn't at UCLA. Like UCLA didn't offer this class or anything. It was at a church that was nearby, and
it's usually hosted by a local.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it basically there's 4 different kind of aspects of the course. There's biblical, historical, cultural, strategic, and it kind of goes through like the world Christian movement in light of those kind of sections, and basically it just talks about like our purpose as God's people from the beginning, blessed to be a blessing, and how the ways that as God's people we've like failed in that, and the ways that the movement has continued to press forward, and kind of all pointing towards this day where people from every people group is around the throne, praising the Lamb who was slain. And it's such it's a 15-week course, or at least when I took it was, and
there's like readings.
Right.
Yeah.
There's readings, there's assignments. You can take them at different levels. And so there's like a, kind of minimal level where you just like do some of the readings, and there's a higher level where you get credits and such. But it kind of just mobilizes people to not necessarily, jump on a plane and go overseas, but just, how we can fulfill that ancient purpose of God, just in our life, like, giving towards missions or hosting international students, or there's so many ways to be involved in this purpose that God has for us. And I think oftentimes we miss out on it because our vision is so narrow, of what we're doing in our life, but God has something so great that he's inviting us into.
Yeah. Let me just ask you this. In your definition, in your mind, how would you define mission? Like, what is this thing that? Yeah,
well, so I kind of think of it as, so I think like there can be people who think, oh, like, you know, mission can be like a department of a church or something, you know, but like actually we have a God of mission. Like mission is something that describes God. And so I think that quality describes his kind of outward, like, you know, he wants to draw people, his outward, kind of love, it like draws people in, you know? Right. And so mission is, you know, something that we all engage as God's people. We're all called to like, it's, you know, being blessed to be a blessing. And through
I like that. You've said that twice now. I love that. That's a good, that's one of those things that people say and you blow right by it. But I think that's huge, that you're blessed to be a blessing, that there's a purpose for everything that God does, not just good for you.
Right.
It's good for you. And go.
There's so much more. And it's like, and it's not even like, the fact that it's also for other people doesn't like negate the fact that he loves us. It's like you can experience the fullness of, you know, his joy by taking part in that. Like by limiting that aspect, you're like really limiting your experience of God, because that's who he is. Like he's, you know, continuously like, pushing outward to bring others in. And so I think, just like mission, it's not just like go overseas and, you know, do something, but it's this this pointing people to see who God is, and inviting them into the community. And
and so did perspectives clarify that for you? Or
they probably gave me like a very like a more eloquent definition than what I just gave, but
that was great.
But I think I had ideas, but it really like, you know, fleshed out through scripture, like what this mission is, like what are we, and even defined like what are we called to do. And you know, the Great Commission, Matthew 28, kind of talks about like what does that mean for our present day. And when Jesus says go and make disciples of all nations, like, you know, how have we done at that? Like talks about the people groups of the world, and how many are reached and unreached. And so it definitely taught me a lot that I wasn't aware of, and gave, you know, clarity to things that like I thought about but I didn't really know so deeply.
So you walked away like, I'm going to Japan. Like that's
no, I think even after that, it's like there's still like, it wasn't black and white. But let's see, I did have a moment that I, you know, had a little bit more clarity. Obviously, I came to have clarity. I like got on a plane.
At some point, this whole thing kind of shook itself out, right?
You know what? I think it was. So I remember my senior year. And I kind of was deciding between a couple different options. One was, you know, interning with crew overseas, and that was the Japan option. Because I'd heard that there's just a huge need, like less than 1% of like the Japanese are Christian, and there's a huge need for people to just go and like be a light there. And so I'd heard that. And I was thinking about going, but also, you know, you have to raise support, like financial support to go. And that was very scary for me. I was like, I don't want to like ask people for money. And God completely shifted my view of what that is. But at the time that was like very scary. And then the other option was probably just continuing with, you know, something with my major, maybe doing something with psychology or, you know, research, like brain research kind of stuff. But I remember there was one, I think it was like a meeting, like kind of weekly meeting kind of thing with the the group I was a part of, crew. And one of the staff members gave, that specific night, one of the staff members gave a message about surrender, about like surrendering things, you know, surrendering our lives to God. And after their message, there was like a prayer time where everyone kind of just like just had individual kind of prayer time. And I remember praying to God, and like after that message, kind of thinking, like praying to God and saying, God, you know, I surrender my life to you. I surrender my relationships, my money, my career, all these things, kind of in this posture of, okay, God, I think I even was praying like, God, everything I have is yours. And at that moment, like I didn't hear an audible voice, but definitely like God spoke to my heart. And as I was saying, God, everything I have is yours, he was saying, everything I have is yours. Like through the Holy Spirit, like, you know, I've been given everything I need. I don't have to like, you know, grasp for all of these things that I think will like fulfill me in this world. But like he's given it to me, you know, more than he's like lavished it on me. I'm so rich because I know God. And, I think that was like a defining moment in my decision to go. Like it kind of, you know, freed me from, just like the fears or, my worries about, you know, potentially going overseas and like being a missionary.
Well, it's uncomfortable. And if it were not for the reality of Christ's existence and what he did and that the mission is true, you're crazy.
Right. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, as far as like the world's standard of like goals in life,
right,
you're not doing it.
Right.
Right. So if whatever percentage of your like I'm okay is tied to those things,
right,
that makes it so much harder.
Right.
But it's what I always tell people is like it's hard for us to say like, okay, God, I believe in you, I want to follow you, I want to serve you, I want to be a part of your mission, but only here.
Stay in the box.
Because over there is scary.
Right.
And that's the thought that I've had about it. I don't feel like God has given me that like go overseas calling. But part of me is like, gosh, would I? Would I go?
Right.
Like, could I do that? Am I too scared?
Right. Yeah, we all have to, you know, check our hearts to see what we're clinging to, you know.
Exactly.
And I find that like God loves to, you know, put people outside their comfort zones. I think that's where he loves to put them. Yeah. And I'm like, shoot, like I don't like it, but I can't, like, of course, like I have to go, you know. I have to when I feel that, like I'm like, yeah, I know that there is greater reward in the going to, you know, in the discomfort, but you don't always feel it right away.
No, rarely.
Right.
And you'll never truly actually know the full impact of what you're even doing.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
You'll have to wait till heaven and see, you know, what the crowd looks like.
Right. Our view is so limited, right? And we only see so much.
Yeah. And so then you settled on Japan. Like, did you do the crew thing? I'm assuming, right? Right.
Okay. So, I spent about 2 years, two of like the intern years, with crew in Tokyo. And so we worked alongside the team, like the national team that's there.
Okay.
And basically their goal is, they want to, you know, help raise up Christian like university students, help them to reach their friends. The goal is to have like student-led movements on campuses. And each of these, you know, people are like plugged into local churches. But it's, they're so like the college campus is like, just ripe with people who are more open and more ready to, you know, hear something new, or they're at a time in their life where they're, you know, deciding what they're going to invest the rest of their life in. And so,
very malleable.
Right. So it's a good time to, reach out.
And you did that, you were there for 2 years? Or?
Yeah. So, I guess it was like 9 or 10 months and then another 9 or 10 months.
Okay.
Came home to like raise more support, but,
wow, that's a long stretch just to do right out of the gate too.
Yeah.
Usually people do like the 2-week little dabble.
Right. I know. I've never been like, to Asia before. But just jumped in.
Wow. Go for it.
Yeah.
Man. So, so I guess you were in Tokyo pretty much then that whole chunk. Right. And how does there call it? I don't know anything. I'm the most ignorant giant white guy
I
you've
didn't
ever
know any of this at all before I went.
So they have a university system, college system. How's that work?
So, they have like universities and like what we would call, I guess, like junior colleges or something like that. And there's like a ton in Tokyo. There's a lot.
Okay.
And they're a little bit different than in America, because a lot of the times, like, they do have dorms on campus, but a lot of students commute. And so we'd meet students who like would commute an hour or 2 hours to school every day, by train usually. And so, and even like with our Christian, like our ministry, we'd have students from different campuses. So it wouldn't necessarily be, a ton of, people on one campus. They'd all be coming from different campuses and come together and just like encourage each other. And
So it's more of an equipping format.
Right.
It's like the crew isn't doing the evangelism. It's like we're kind of huddling, and then you guys go.
The goal, we want to have students like kind of feel like able to, share their story with other people, and to feel encouraged that, there are other, because oftentimes these Christian students don't have other people at their school that know Jesus, or they can very much feel like surrounded by people who like have very different beliefs. And so I think it's really encouraging to have, or just to, have some fellowship with people who are also college students and at schools where there aren't a lot of Christians. And so we want to like equip them to be able to share the gospel, and even to disciple new believers. And as staff, we do outreach, but like that is something that we do, but also like our goal is to equip students to do that, because they will do it so much better than we will do, especially foreign missionaries. And so we always want to have like Japanese Christians being the ones to share their faith.
Because here's a question, well, two, but first one is more of a curiosity. How prevalent is English in Japan, and how much do you have to learn? Like, how much have you learned just to do what you're doing? Like, it has to be.
So my first, like my intern years, I wasn't like in Japanese school or anything. And so I didn't know a lot. So I relied on English. Most students, everyone learns English, like even from elementary school, they learn English. That doesn't mean that they can speak English, just like, here, Spanish, or,
It's probably as good as my 3 years of Spanish.
Right.
All I remember is like bad words and something about a bathroom. I don't know. That's it.
Right. But there are many students who really want to learn English because they realize that it's like very valuable just for jobs, or for, just for life. So there was a big interest in learning English, and so that's honestly a lot of the outreach for the interns. It's people who are interested in English and want to, or just even interested in life outside of Japan. A lot of them have never been outside of Japan, and so making international friendships is something they're interested in. And and you can operate, I think as a foreigner, you can operate in somewhere like Tokyo. It's more of an international place. You can definitely operate, but definitely for like, long-term ministry there, Japanese is essential.
It's a good idea.
If you want to speak to people's hearts and understand people's hearts, I mean, there's no other way.
You don't want to play charades over there for the rest of your life.
Right. And so the last 2 years when I was there, I was in Japanese school, and so everyday learning.
So at this point, are you conversational? Like how? Like can you hang?
I can hang. I never like. Let's see. I can operate and I can talk with people, and I'm self-conscious about like, I'm making these mistakes and stuff, but people are super gracious, and
I'm sure they are. They take one look at you and they're shocked you know anything, probably, right?
Right. I say one konnichiwa and they're like, what? But that's honestly like just because I'm so obviously a foreigner, because I look like a foreigner, but it is different for my like Asian American friends who are also missionaries over there. Like they don't get treated the same way, but so that's an interesting dynamic. But
like you're so outside of their normal box,
right,
that it kind of earns you some street credit, like right out of the gate. Interesting.
In a way. But
Yeah.
there's also the flip side of that where like we found that sometimes like my Asian American friends who are on my team, like they might, the Japanese person might feel a little bit closer with them because they, maybe look more similar or
Right.
have a little bit more of a similar family background. And so there's advantages to both.
Yeah.
And
makes
I think it takes the whole family of God to,
Right.
so for someone to truly experience like Christian community.
Yeah. What was some of the fruit that you saw from just that, 18 months or whatever, 2 years?
Yeah. Man, yeah, there's lots of stories of, meeting students and kind of their journeys of discovering who God is. I think the things that stand out most to me, or the things that I remember most, are the times that I just saw God come through, like those times where you're like, I think God loves just showing his, how it's so not us and it's all on him, using us in our weakness and displaying his power through it. There would be times where, because every day we'd go to campus and meet students or, have appointments with students who are interested in do some kind of exploratory Bible study or something like that.
Yeah.
I got to see, God do his thing. And I remember one time specifically, there was, so sometimes we'd be invited into a class. So we knew one Christian professor, and it was such a blessing because there aren't a ton of Christian professors in Tokyo, but we knew one, and he invited our team into his class and to have discussion with students. And I remember, so there was, I think maybe me and 3 other teammates or something. And so we all kind of broke up and had different groups, and we would have, there'd be a discussion topic and we'd talk about it. And this was in English because I think it was an English class.
Okay.
And
yeah.
And I remember the topic of discussion was what is the purpose of life or something, and that's something so
softball. Nice.
No student wants to talk about that, but the teacher was he's really, really great, but he didn't care about making his students feel uncomfortable.
No, apparently
he just
not.
gave it to them. And so I remember going around with each, I think I was in a group with all boys, and I remember thinking or asking them what do you think the purpose of life is? And all of them kind of gave me they just shook their heads I don't know, Yeah. And I was do you and your friends talk about that? And all of them gave me a no, they don't really want to talk about it now. And then I said, do you wish you could? Kind of thinking oh, maybe they would say something. But all of them were no, they shook their heads. But then afterwards, I remember I think I changed the subject to baseball or something that was more manageable.
Okay.
And the class period ended, and I went to the other side of the room to grab my coat or something, and I felt a tap, behind me. Someone tapped my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was one of the boys in my group. And he said something along the lines of, excuse me, I'm so sorry, but can you please tell me the purpose of life? Sometimes I stay awake at night, and because I'm just thinking about it. Sometimes I even can't go to school. I'm just thinking about these things. Please tell me.
Wow.
He didn't have, no one else would talk about it, or he had never, met someone who was talking about it. And he just felt uncomfortable talking about it in that group. I think there's a lot of, things with group dynamics, same in America too, but probably especially in Japan. So we could connect him to, meet up with someone. And so, just, things like that where God just orchestrates students meeting the right people at the right time. And and honestly, with my experience there, it's always wow, God is so God has these purposes, and he will see them through, and he uses people in their weakness, and it's nothing special in just like, oh, he uses the people with great abilities or great, lots of willpower, whatever. It's like, no, he just uses the people that are just like willing. And there'd be times literally where I'd be walking on campus like aimlessly, like just like praying, like, God, who do you want me to talk to? And just like, maybe my plans kind of fell through for the day, and I'd be like walking. I remember one time specifically, I was roaming a campus, just kind of praying because I didn't really, I don't know, have like a specific plan. And I was just talking to God, like, yeah, who do you want me to talk to? And I remember I made eye contact with one Japanese girl, and she immediately like broke eye contact because it was like, I think she was shy, and it was uncomfortable,
Yeah, who does
But then I was like, oh man, like maybe I should talk to her. And like I just like walked up to her and kind of like asked if we could like, I just introduced myself and asked if we could like talk. And I actually found out that she's a Christian, and
wow,
which is like very rare.
You
but
found
like,
the one.
Yeah. And she said, like, you wouldn't believe this, but actually this morning on my way to campus, I was praying to God, saying, I want to share the gospel with my friends, but I don't know how. Can you please help me? Like that morning she did that. And like, whoa. Yeah, like as a team, like that's our goal, is to like help equip students to share the gospel. And so it's just, and I mean, those stories don't happen every day by any means, but it's really cool to see, when it does happen.
Things beyond coincidence. Wow. And then so you went there, came back, went there, came back. At what point were you like, I'm going all the way? Like when did that happen?
Let's see.
Long term.
So yeah, after my 2 internship years, we kind of decide like, to either join staff, and you can join staff in America, or you can join staff overseas, or just not join staff and choose a different kind of career path. But I think, let's see, it was during my second intern year, and my team leader was just kind of sharing like vision for the next few years of like what he hoped to see God do. And basically, he was talking about like the most unreached and influential campuses in the world, and how so many of them are in Japan, and so many of the ones in Japan are in Tokyo, and there's just like, people who will influence their country and other countries and governments, leaders. And leaders, and like right now, at that time we just had such a small staff team, and I kind of just felt like it was this feeling when he was saying that, like, it was this feeling of like excitement, but like fear and like dread, and excitement. It was like this weird mix of like, this is so exciting. I feel so not like competent for this. And I know it's going to be hard, and I don't want to, but I do. I don't know. But I think, I just, as I like prayed about it and also talked with other people, like, I'm part of a church there, that, I talk with people at that church, Japanese believers at that church. And I just kind of gained vision for what God is doing there, and for the need for people to be there. And I know that I'm not the solution that Japan needs. Japan doesn't need me by any means.
It's just you got the whole place.
It doesn't even need like our team. It's like, but like, what a joy it is to be like, hey God, here I am, like, use me in my weakness, use me in my like foolishness, like I just here I am.
You get to you get to be a part of what he's doing, right? I love to tell people you're not strong enough to accomplish God's will, and you're also not strong enough to stop it. So just do something.
Right. Right. Instead of being paralyzed by the decision, right? And I think, I have, in making that decision, I realized that, like, it's not like, signing up to be a long-term missionary is the holy path, and doing a secular job, that's the unholy, like, not by any means. Like, for me, it was about, like, where do I think God is calling me, and just realizing that God cares so much more about our character and what is motivating our decisions more than like, what career path we choose. Like, what is, our inner life with him? How are we responding to him? Are we operating by faith or by, what we know that we can do or accomplish or whatever? And so my perspective definitely shifted during that time.
And then so let's get the sister rivalry going then.
Right.
Because she's come to the same conclusion also somewhere in that period of time. So
and I was like, copycat. No, I was happy, but it was just like we kind of laugh at like here we are doing the same thing.
Did you talk about it? You're like, hey, I think I want to become a missionary. She's like, no way, so do I. That's great.
I forgot like what the process was, but around the same time, I think like, we were just kind of like having similar thoughts of where we were kind of being called, and so and there's this great aspect of just like having someone who like knows you really well, and like it's such a blessing to have family there, and so I think that like it was like I'm happy that she's doing it too. But it is funny that like I think at that time we were like 25 and we were like we're still doing the same thing.
Hey, don't change what's not broken. It worked.
Right.
Right on. Okay, and then you come back to the States, and this is the time period that you were like with Resonate, and is that
so I know it's so confusing. I think I was it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago that I was interning with Resonate.
Yeah, it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. And then because then that was like about a year, and then I spent 2 more years or almost a year and a half in Japan before coming back.
Has it been that long?
I spent at least a year and 3/4 or almost 2 years in Japan.
Whoa, okay.
So I started.
That's where that went. Okay, there's a chunk of time I was like, where did this?
Yeah,
okay.
No, it's a little confusing. It was like Japan, then interning at Resonate, then Japan again.
So how long were you in the States for? Maybe a year and a half.
Something like a year and a couple months or something.
And during that time, you're set on going. We're gonna do it.
Right.
What is the aim to go back with the crew or?
Yeah.
So that's where you're at now.
So
okay.
it was just transitioning from, interning to long-term staff.
Okay.
And so that's, we had a few like different classes and trainings that crew provides for their long-term staff, and then some specific ones for their overseas long-term staff.
Okay.
And so I was doing that, and then also interning with Resonate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember hearing many phone calls and like asking you like how far are you?
Yeah.
How long are you?
Right.
Like I don't think the support raising process is talked about a lot when people talk about missions, but from that like third person perspective, it seemed hard. It's really hard.
I mean, the thought of it at first was terrifying. I didn't. It's never comfortable to anytime you like really talk about money, it's not comfortable. People get uncomfortable.
Right.
But honestly, my view of it has changed so much as I've had to do it a few times.
So what does it cost? Well, what's the price tag to send you to Japan for? What was the threshold? Because I remember you guys were trying to get to a certain spot. You're like, okay, now we can go with this. What was that?
Well, it depends for like the amount is different for interns and then for long-term staff.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the location that you're, sent to because of the, just the cost of living that's there.
Okay. So you're factoring in all those things.
So all those things. And then, so your living expenses, your ministry expenses. And then there's also a chunk of, like money that will go to the organization for like administrative kind of stuff,
right?
And even sometimes like at least American missionaries through my organization can have some of their support the support that they raise be funneled to other like staff in other countries who don't have access to a large Christian community who will provide their funds.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really important aspect too, is like helping to, here in America, we have many, even if it's just Christian by name, we have many Christians around us, and with lots of resources, but there are many countries where you just don't have that at all. Maybe there's, less than 1% Christian, and you just don't have a lot of resources. And so sometimes, funds are channeled there, but, gosh, I can't even remember the numbers now. I do know that it sounds high until you factor in everything that goes into it.
I'm trying to remember.
It's like, I tell you.
I want to say it's like 40, 50.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around
50,000.
Yeah, it was 50 something, I think.
Which isn't crazy, really. If you think about like what the average person requires to live here per year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's also like health insurance. You're raising for health insurance and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, when you begin your support raising journey and you just like have that amount, 50 whatever, it can be overwhelming. But then and definitely there are days where it's like, oh my gosh, I will never accomplish this, and it just seems impossible. But it's honestly that support raising time is such a faith building time. It's such a refining time. It's almost like I'm thankful for. I never thought I would be able to say I'm like thankful for it, but like I'm so thankful for it, because it really makes you rely on God in ways that you never would otherwise.
Right.
Like you just the what you have to like remind yourself in order to go to someone and tell them about the ministry and like invite them to be a part of it, and truly believe that like it is such a blessing to be invited to be a part of something like this. And of course it's not because you are I'm so worthy of this money, but it's like it's to God. All giving is to God. It started as God's, and everything is his. And so it's inviting them to be a part of this exciting thing that God is doing. And so and through support raising too, like it was just getting to see God move in people. And and even like when my sister and I were raising support, we would meet with people and just kind of get to know them and just share about the ministry and invite them to be part of it. And honestly, we would always view it like before those meetings, we would go into it just praying like, God, would this whatever the outcome is, would this just be pleasing to you? Would we just be able to stir up worship, like just to talk about the excellencies of God and what he's doing around the world, and like let this just be a time of worship. Like we kind of viewed our ministry at that time as just like stirring up worship. And if people are led to give, like we're super thankful, and that's we're super thankful for that. But like let the aim be like let us worship God, and he's the one that moves in people's hearts to give. And so honestly, support raising was not an issue. Like surprisingly, like we thought, especially there's two of us, like of course it took a lot of hard work and had a lot of like uncomfortable situations, but like God did it, and even with me and Dylan, we do have to raise some support, and we're reminding ourselves of the same truths of like this is God's mission. He's gonna see it through. Like he'll provide everything we need, and it's our role right now to tell people what God is doing, and how people can be a part of it. And
it's this might sound familiar. See if you can nail who I'm getting this from. But it's when it comes to like giving in a church world, or asking someone to serve in some way, that's more frequently the conversation I would have with people. Is like, I've got this giant ministry. There's lots going on. It's not an inconvenience that I'm inviting you to. It might seem like that because, oh gosh, you'll have less of your time, and patience and energy and money. But I'm inviting you to actually be a part of something that's better than the thing I'm asking you to give me.
Right.
Right. I'm asking for an hour and a half once a week. But what the reward for this is that you get to be a part of the front row and seeing what God is doing. And like, especially when it comes to like kids ministry, that's my lens for it.
Right.
It's like you get to be the voice that God uses to make himself known to a first grader.
Yeah.
Like
what an honor. Like
yours is the first voice besides their parents who will legitimately teach them the gospel.
Yeah.
Give me 90 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Like I'm not crazy. I'm not inconvenienced, I promise. Like
totally, yeah.
So that's a Scott Taylorism.
Okay. I was going to guess Scott.
Yeah. So but it's true that it's not like a, you know, you're not trying to start up a business.
No, totally.
It's like, oh, I got this idea
and
for
God doesn't need us. It's not like we're just trying to, I mean, sometimes on a practical level it just feels like there's a need that needs to be met.
Yeah.
But like God owns all the resources in this world, and God's purposes will be done. And but like what a privilege it is to like be invited into it. That's kind of how I try to view it.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that went well then, because you met your goals.
Right. So I met my goals to be able to go to Japan, and obviously after getting married and someone's changing locations, and so there's readjusted goals and such. But
okay, well we'll get there. I think I'm interested to hear the Dylan story. But so then the last that like we saw of you was like a goodbye party, like the follow us on this blog stuff and Facebook and all that, and then once in a while you'd pop in on like a Zoom thing here and there. I remember what is that? You showed up to like one of the young adults meetings.
Right, we did randomly
over Zoom, and I was like, "What? What time is it there? Like, why are you awake?"
I think it was when like COVID first kind of hit and everything turned online, and then we were like, "Hey, we can join online now."
Yeah,
so,
that's so weird. Yeah. Get out of here. So then you're okay. So you what was your like? What are the apprehensions you went through about going there for this like long term? Like there's not a defined like end.
Yeah.
What are you thinking going into it? Like, oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I think just operating in another country, another culture, like for a short time period or for like, a foreseeable kind of time period and end date, is one thing, but then just like picking up and moving there and like calling that place home is like different. And so, I was like, and also operating in another language too, I think. Obviously there's so much grace, and I have so many friends who are so gracious with me as I try and make mistakes. But you kind of feel like you can't be your full self in a way. You can't express your full personality and kind of come across the way you'd want to come across, like, in your home country. How to say certain things to, have the precise meaning that you want to convey. But, as you're operating in another language, in another culture, there's so much of that that's missed. And so, or that's just hard to do. And so I think that was probably like my biggest just like worry is just, what, like I'd already experienced, a couple of years of interning there, and like I did, study a tiny bit during that time, and as I would try, you just kind of feel like, oh, I'm someone else right now. Like I'm not, I can't be the full person, with the grocery store lady. I can't come across the way that I want to exactly. And but I kind of have come to see that as like, that's part of, well, for one, sometimes I think, I can just be too self-conscious and just, think too much about how I'm being perceived, which is still an issue.
Good luck with that one. I don't know.
But also I think like that's part, those times, in Japan where I just find myself like who am I right now? Like I'm sitting at a cat cafe and I'm like, I'm like, what is my life right now? But then I'm like, how beautiful that like in the tiniest little way I can, reflect, just kind of like taking on, like, it's kind of like incarnational ministry, like taking on, shedding something that I'm comfortable with and taking on something I'm uncomfortable with for the sake of the gospel. Like in the if I can just do that in the tiniest little way, as a reflection of like what Jesus has done, like what an honor that is. And so I like try to praise God in those times of like, oh yeah, like this doesn't feel like me, or like,
right.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you kind of hang on to as like comfort?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you can't just be on the edge all the time.
Right.
Like there's a certain Sabbath that has to happen.
Oh, totally.
It's like, what does that look like while you're in Japan in a strange place, strange language, all these, and you're probably getting more and more used to it. I would hazard to say, but there's still, like, what do you hang on to?
Yeah. And I'm so like thankful for my community there. And I do have other Americans on my team. And so like, it is fun just to like, do American things with them, just hang out with them and such. But, I think one thing that has just been consistent, like I really love running, like going on like long runs, and my sister does too. And so, we'd often just like go on runs. And for me, it's like, it's so relaxing. I know some people don't think of running as relaxing. But
what are you talking about? She's lost it.
I know, but that's something that is kind of just like a consistent thing that has been a habit of mine since like high school or something. And so, that's something that like, I feel very comfortable in, and I feel kind of like settled in when I'm able to go on a run. And it when I'm feeling anxious about something, it like kind of, I don't know, it just, I have time to reflect, and that's something that's been like really helpful. And there are probably other like little things too, where like, sometimes we have this friend from home that will always send us like this is so funny, but like cashews. Like I love cashews. And like, I mean, you can buy them in Japan, but that you can get like a bigger size here. And so that's like funny. They'll send us those, and I'm like, wow, like that's just a little taste of home.
It's a long way to send some nuts.
I know, it's expensive too. It's crazy expensive, but
running. Mm-hmm. I will never say that. No, not in 1,000 years.
It's not for everybody.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
No, that's funny. I'm curious also about just like, I'm trying to put myself in the mind of someone listening who doesn't really know much about Japan. Mm-hmm. Like if you were to give like a little intro to like, here's kind of like from an American, when you're there, it's like, this surprised you. You wouldn't expect this, like that kind of like really relevant knowledge, like just to paint a picture of like what this experience is for you to move there.
I think one of the things that stands out to me the most when I think about the differences between like life in America and life in Japan is how kind of like tight the culture is, or how like homogenous kind of like, for example, like when I'm in America, I never really assume that someone else is thinking like the same thing as me. Like I feel like there's just kind of like this assumption that like everyone is like very different with different opinions, and there's probably also an aspect of that in Japan. But from an American's perspective, I think sometimes it can seem like there are so many like, there's so many more like social rules, or like a way to do things. There's like a kind of like a right way to do things, or like something that is a Japanese way to do things, and so I think that's one of the challenges that like foreigners have, is like understanding those things, like
you break all these social norms.
Like,
it's just what I do.
For example, like I don't know, like being on a train, like generally it's pretty quiet on a train unless you're in some of the, I guess, louder areas. There's like a few of the very, like a lot of young people, but generally it's very quiet on the train. And so every once in a while I'll see like foreigners on the train and like talking really loud, and like it's just a huge difference between like the Japanese people who are like more quiet.
Nobody will look at them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, there's just a lot of, and I'm sure that there's a element of that in any culture, in any place. And I'm probably, as an American, oftentimes we're blind to our own culture's, kind of norms, or because it's like, the water we're swimming in, it's the air we're breathing. But yeah, going there, sometimes it's like, oh man, they're like, there's like this kind of like it feels like a high wall to, becoming Japanese. Like I know I will never become Japanese, but it seems like such a, tight kind of culture.
Yeah. It brings a couple things to mind. There was okay, I should be careful. Okay. A missionary to a country. There you go. It's as vague as we can get. And when she came back, I guess in that particular country, that there's like the women's not really has all the same social rights, I guess, as they do here. And one thing is eye contact. That like a woman's not allowed to make eye contact with a man that isn't like her family or her husband. And so that's very early on in the training for missionaries, is like, hey, don't get this right. You might get drug out. But coming back, she said it took her a long time to kind of not do the eye aversion, looking down thing. And like, it's okay to just like actually, I mean, it's even weird sometimes, but it's okay to just say hi to someone you don't know. Hey, how's it going?
It's not like out of,
but especially
super weird
to a guy. Like it took her a while to kind of get back out of that.
There's definitely some cultural things that like,
and there's
to be aware of.
The second thing I was going to think of is I don't like Costco very much. And how can I, hang on. I'm going to be careful again for a whole different reason. Let me just say, first of all, I am not a racist, okay? Zero racism in this statement. I would just observe that when I would go places where there's a lot of ethnic diversity, especially in Fremont, it's a high, a lot of Chinese and very, very Asian dense. And Costco is the spot to go to get a cross section of the culture. And I'd get bumped into a lot. And it would bug me. I'm like, I'm right. Like, I'm a foot taller than everybody. And like, how could you miss me? And finally someone explained to me, they're like, they see you. It just doesn't matter. Like in where they come from. There's so many people. And that's just how you do it. You just kind of point in the direction you want to go. You just bump off of everybody on the way there. Because if they actually went through the trouble of trying to not, do this, excuse me, sorry, but nobody would get anywhere. So they just kind of like bump into each other and everyone gets where they're going. And they're like, this is just what we are. No one's angry about it. It's what we do.
It's kind of an it works in.
Once I learned that, I was like, oh, so I don't have to be personally offended every time someone bumps into me. I don't even have to say anything. This is, I might still say, sorry. Like I can't not. Anyway.
But definitely, going overseas, there's so many instances of like, you see something happening that you're like, this, feels different. This feels very different than what I know. But I think the main thing that I've, learned is coming in with humility of like, even if it feels wrong, being like, well, I don't think it's a matter of wrong and right. It's what's familiar and unfamiliar, and kind of seeing beauty in the things that are different. And actually a lot of what I've experienced in Japan, it's like, wow, like this is actually better than, how we do things. But then it's like, it's just different. And I think, God expresses like his beauty differently in different cultures, and to be able to like be open to recognizing it as such, I think is important, especially for, just life, like especially long-term life in a different country. Like you want to like enjoy and appreciate the culture and not like look down upon it or be
what a miserable mission that would be.
Right.
Just grouchy all the time. Why am I here?
Right.
Yeah. Well, so what are some of the highlights then of the last year and a half or so there? Like, what's your role? What do you kind of do? What's happened?
Yeah. So I was, a lot of my time spent studying Japanese. And honestly, like, that's something that was one of the things that I was very like nervous about and kind of like just kind of foreseeing the uncomfortableness that comes with learning another language and not just, studying it, but practicing it. Because of course it comes with so many mistakes. And as someone who, wants to be viewed as competent or it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to like endure through so much like discomfort,
right?
But I've seen God just like he just does so much. So he's so smart in the way that he like designs it all, like using our discomfort to like point us to him and to make us more reliant on him and more prayerful. Like whenever I open my mouth when I'm like speaking Japanese, it's like you better believe I'm dependent on God because it's like it's kind of like going back to the support raising example. It's like something that's uncomfortable, but it makes you dependent on God, and I think that's where he wants you, and so when I think about the last couple of years, I just think of the times where like God has just shown himself as so beautiful to me and so much bigger than my little worries. And I think it was kind of a consistent like God taking me through that journey of being less self-conscious and more just like about like obeying him and resting in that. And and of course when I think about highlights, getting engaged, like that was also a big thing that happened in the last engaged and then married. It was something in the last couple of years that very big defining moment. And that happened in the summer.
Since you brought it up, like how did when I think of like being a Japanese missionary, that doesn't seem like the best dating pool in my mind.
I mean, they're in a place where there aren't like a ton of Christians, and it's like
right.
But like we had conversations like before this, but like dating like really wasn't on my mind so much, and like I think I kind of like I was like it just wasn't a priority of mine, it wasn't something I thought too much about. But I met Dylan at one of our like trainings for overseas missionaries with crew, and even at the time like that I met him, like I still wasn't like looking for like a relationship.
No, it was love at first sight. Come on. He had light coming from his head, all that.
I don't know about that, but like I was more open to it than I think I had been before.
Okay. When was this? This was on.
So actually it was when I was interning for Resonate, like that year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when we first met, but we didn't really start dating until a little bit late, like that following summer, at one of our longer like trainings.
Okay.
But most of our relationship was long distance. Basically all of it. Yeah,
that's amazing. So you had met a couple of times for short chunks during trainings,
right?
And then basically the relationship itself has developed. At a distance.
Yeah. So he was in a different country in Asia, and then I was in Japan, and he visited Japan something like 4 times, and I visited his country once. But all of it was like we used the app Marco Polo a lot. Do you know that app? It's like a video messenger app.
Yeah.
And so like that was and there's a bit of a time difference, and and both of us were like, settling into these countries that like, we're planning to live long term in. And so, there's still, a lot of like unknowns and, wanting to like give each other space to like just be present to where like, that was like, I think a high value for both of us is like, we don't want to like be always occupied with, thoughts that are not like, we want to be present with the people that we're with. And so, I was thankful we were both on the same page in that way.
Yeah. And then, so at what point was it like, okay, we're going to get married? This is amazing to me. The cumulative hours that you spent together physically prior
Not
to
much.
is maybe like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it wasn't very much at all. So it did take me, and especially coming from, a place of not really prioritizing like that aspect of my life, like dating or marriage.
Yeah.
And like, kind of like, not knowing if I like would get married or not. It took me like longer to come to that place of like wanting to like get married. I think, in my head, I always knew that like, marriage and like families, they're a good thing, but it kind of always felt like, I can be much more, efficient or something if I'm like by myself. That was like my thinking. But I knew like, if someone were to ask me like, like the theology of marriage or family or something, I'd be like, I'd probably like say it. But like, that was like my feeling. But through especially last year, like 2019, I don't know if you heard this, but I lost my cousin in a car accident. Yeah. And I came home for like a couple of weeks for the funeral and to be with my family for a little bit. But especially during that like season, I think God was really doing something in my heart regarding like, marriage and family. My aunt and uncle, they're both believers, and to see them like, they lost, their 20-year-old son, and just to see, the pain that they were going through, but the way that the gospel shined through their marriage, it was like no other, I saw the strength in that, and even what it was doing in the people around them as they got to see like just this couple who like literally they had nothing but God to hang on to. They just flung themselves at God in their weakest, like worst moments. And there was nothing like super, there was no light bulb, but I just, I saw God's design in marriage, and it became really beautiful to me. And I think God was like slowly opening my like mind to what, just like the beauty in it and how, he displays himself through it. And also, in Tokyo, I have, like my team leader has a family, and, he would often invite us to like have dinner and just do things with the family. And I just got to see how beautiful, how beautifully they kind of like display God and invite people into like their community. And, so it was definitely opening my mind to, marriage for me. And then, at some point, I think it was after I visited him, I kind of just decided, there's so much I don't know. Obviously we've never, lived in the same city.
Country.
But, country. Yeah, really. And, there's so much I won't know, but I feel like with marriage, like there's always some, I think actually Dylan told me this. He was like, there's always some kind of like some gap you have to jump over, but ours might be bigger, but like, that's like, yeah.
I mean, you're never done even figuring out who you are. Right. How could you say like, oh, I know I know everything about you now. Like I'm like no. You even if you did, you're both still being transformed and moved around, and that's
we're both still changing. And yeah. And I think I saw that like we both had the same like kind of like just vision and not specific vision of like exactly where, but just like wanting to be overseas. And like I saw like in him like just a desire to like just align himself with God's purposes. And he wasn't someone who said like oh, I'm going over, like, I feel so competent and so confident in my own abilities, and that's why I'm going overseas. He was like, that posture of like, you know, like, am I the best person? I don't know, but like, God has me here, and I want to be like obedient to him. And and I thought like, I admired that, and
just say yes, see what happens. Yeah. And then how did I mean, you missionary types, and you're like just jumping into things, right? Like, but so you said he proposed over
FaceTime.
Yeah.
Because so it was during like COVID. So his plan originally was to come to Japan and propose, I think. But he couldn't do that because of the restrictions,
right? That's complicated.
The travel restrictions, and so, he did it via FaceTime, and then I came home like shortly after that, and we just had a couple. Was it 2 or 3 months before we? 2 months. No, 2 months before we got married.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah. I met him for maybe a cumulative like minute. Yeah. I think.
Right, you'll have to see him again.
He seemed like a cool guy.
Yeah.
Good looking dude. He's into you. You could tell just by that. Like, it was great. And because I knew that you were talking to someone that was like oh, she's talking to somebody, but that was 2 years ago. So I had no idea. And then, and then I see you walk up. This is my husband.
No,
I was like,
it was like a shocker.
What?
I know. Even some of my family members were like, "What?" Because I wasn't super active on like social media or anything like that. And so people are like, "What? I didn't even know you were dating someone." I'm like, "Sorry."
Yeah, you'll get used to it. Whatever. Figure it out. We're a package now. Yeah. That's funny. Well, and then so from that point, you guys are on mission together, right? That's the way it's going to roll now.
Right. So he is going to switch locations and be with me in Tokyo. So he'll join our team in Tokyo. And that's a pretty,
I mean, as far as transitions go, it's the same organization. It's just kind of a...
obviously different culture and language, but... But, he's familiar with like overseas life and, same organization. And so we're thankful that,
How fun. You guys got such a blast. And it's going to be really hard too. But, equally blast and difficult.
Right.
Wow. And then so when do you go back?
So sometime next year. We don't know the exact time yet. There's like a few different factors that we're taking into consideration, but sometime next year. We'd like to go soon. But we'll see. Yeah.
Everything is more complicated these days as far as all that.
Definitely.
Especially international travel and Wow. So where you guys living then?
So right now we are living we're living in an RV, living next to my grandma's house in
Van
Fremont.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. And
awesome.
It's been great. We are like parked right next to my grandma's house, and so we'll get to pop into her house.
Nice.
And that's a blessing that we can do that. And the RV is like big enough.
It's bigger than most Japanese apartments.
Right. Yeah, and it's not like we have like a ton of stuff that we brought, from living overseas, and so it works and it's cozy and
nice.
Yeah.
That's everyone's dream.
Yeah. I get my 94-year-old grandma popping in on us sometimes. No knocking, just open the door.
That's family.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why to this day, I still use the restroom with the door shut in my own house, because that door just opens and people come in it, and I don't know.
I'm prepared. Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing? Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
They feel welcomed.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, there's many days when the Smiths lived there. It's just like there is no. I would lock it once in a while. Like, I'm gonna make you
make sure
knock this time. Like, wow, how fun. What was the last name again? Sorry.
Thompson.
Yeah. Shoot, Dylan Thompson. Yeah. That's a good name. Okay. Wow, Wow. Okay. So I feel like I have so many more questions, but they're more for my own entertainment than. Now, how's the sister dynamic then going to be? Because it's like, I think I had asked you this together at one point.
I
like,
think
what
did.
happens when one of you?
Totally. I think I remember you specifically asking that question. And I hadn't thought about it much before that. You know?
I know. That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
Like, how's this going to go?
That's a great question.
Which one of you is going first?
Yeah. Little do we know how relevant it would be for us right now. But yeah, I thought it would feel more weird to like live apart from Rachel than it has. Like, we spent the first 27 years generally in the same area.
Yeah.
Sometimes we didn't like in college. There were some years we didn't live together, but yeah, we hadn't like lived in different countries for an extended period of time. And it hasn't felt like super weird. I mean, of course, there are little things like when I'm living in Fremont. Usually, I'll, both me and Rachel will share a car and we'll, kind of jump to our different family members' houses together.
Right. We share circles. Yeah.
Right. And so obviously like now I'm with Dylan and so it's different. But it hasn't felt hard. And I think it's like, I feel like we have that kind of relationship where we're very close. But we know how to live like apart from each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's like that kind of, dependency, like that kind of overly dependent kind of posture with each other, which I couldn't have known until we separated. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, right. But it's been good. And
you miss
feels
her
right.
though. You haven't seen her for a while.
Like I mean, I can pick up the phone and talk to her, like talk with her, so it's not like and
That's
I'm happy she's over there. I'm like really thankful and happy she's over there, and she's not like super itching for me to come back. I talked on the phone with her like yesterday, and I think I asked her like, oh, would you be happy if we came back sooner? And she was like, like
here or there.
But
Great.
like I think it just it feels right, and
that was one thing that for some reason surprised me when the two of you gave your testimonies, the shorter versions, is that each of you said the word "I" a lot more often than I expected. I was expecting a lot more "we."
Yeah. I do have a tendency to use "we," and I kind of trained myself to say "I," because I think my natural tendency would be to say "we."
You speak for the both of you.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, usually I'm speaking for both of us.
I don't know. You'd figured that out at some point, because I was like, gosh, they really are telling their individual stories, even though they have all these intersection points.
Yeah, where it's almost the same story.
Yeah.
Well, it's different in the, we experience it differently, but they're similar.
All right.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to as far as going back to Japan? Like what, because I'm assuming you had to kind of take your hands off some things that you're in process with. So what's the, like, when and if you do get to go back, like you're excited about this thing? Or
I think just being in Japan, like with Dylan, with like kind of it's this different chapter kind of in my life. And it's something obviously I haven't experienced before, but I'm excited to see, like what it will bring. I'm not like currently doing stuff with the Tokyo ministry. And so I'm also very excited to like, just get back there and, be working with like my teammates that I've been with for, quite a while now. I think that like, I don't know how it will be like being like a married staff person. And there's not like a ton of on our Tokyo team. There's, not a ton of them. And so, I'm kind of excited to see like how it will even change my dynamic, like doing ministry with Japanese girls, even obviously like they're college students. And so almost none of them are married. But just like having those conversations about like marriage and family and relationships and stuff like that. I think it'll be different coming from like, a married person, and with the experience that I have, it's like I've been married for like how many months now. I'm like no expert by any means, but even just like, for most of them, I'm sure like a marriage that's founded on Jesus is something that like they don't have an example of unless they're like grew up in the church or something. And so
right. That's that. It's that meaning of life question. It just gets it gets denser for you now. Like there's this whole other facet to life. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm looking forward to just seeing what God has for me in that way.
Amazing. Couple more questions. I'm tiring you out. That's great.
No. Okay. I'm doing great.
No, I love to ask everybody these things because everyone's answer is always kind of different, and it's really fun. What would you say God is teaching you, like right now?
Yeah. I think he's teaching me something now that he's probably been teaching me for a while, but honestly, like being like, Jesus talks about like abiding in him, how like the branch abides in the vine and we're like to abide. And sometimes when I read that, I'm like, I get it, but I don't like, I get it, but like, what does that look like practically, And I think just like probably the last couple years, but even now, he's like teaching me what that means. And I think what comes with that is like an attentiveness to God, and like in the I don't know, in the chaos or in whatever's happening, like being attentive to him. Being aware of his presence and like resting in it. Recently we've had some kind of like outside drama. Me and Dylan have had some like outside drama, but we're like kind of exposed to, and it's been super stressful. And sometimes it's like, it just feels like so chaotic. But I think he's like quieting me and making me attentive to him, and like having me like find rest in him. And so
I like that, because that word abiding is it's a very rich theological concept, because it's like a trust, it's a rest, it's a peacefulness, but it doesn't require life to be peaceful to experience it. It's kind of it's the whole rock thing, like you are my rock,
right?
Whether calm seas, we're doing deep analysis, we're 5 layers in calm seas, rough seas, you're my rock, it doesn't change,
right?
The unchangingness of God. That's good. Here's my favorite question. What is it about Jesus that would motivate you to essentially remove yourself from whatever life, was expected of you, or whatever you'd have here, and just go and do this impossible thing of making disciples in other countries? Like how does that happen?
Like when I think of Jesus, I think of like this king, this all-powerful king. Like by him, through him, for him, everything was created. Sovereign over everything. Like that same king was hanging on a cross, like almost naked on a cross. The very people, the very hands that he created, like were nailing his hands to a cross while he says like, Father, forgive them. Like that is so, I will never wrap my head around it. What a God we have, like not just almighty, but like would humble himself.
Yeah.
And the very people he created to like turn on him and to crucify him and for him to like, it's like, yeah, you don't find that, anywhere else. And, and when I think about, we're not just like living aimlessly right now. Like history is headed somewhere. Like, the end picture has been painted for us, like in scripture. Like there will be a day when, people from, every people group, every tribe and country and nation, will be around the throne praising him. And, like we're headed towards that day. Like Jesus is coming back, he's returning. He says to stay awake, be alert, and, I'm not, calculating the days, but he's coming. And when I, get into that reality, it's like, it just brings clarity to every other aspect of my life. It's like, this is where we're headed. And, I can choose to ignore it, and maybe be more comfortable or like be a part of it and let God have his way. And like, it's going to be better than my way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. How could somebody listening follow you / support you as you're getting ready to go after it again? Yeah.
And so, so there are different ways to support. People support through finances, through giving, monthly or quarterly or whatever. And then there's also prayer support. There's also like, some people, sometimes we don't even know enough people to be able to like have the full support team that we need. And so some people like introduce us to others. And so there's a variety of ways. We send a prayer letter every month to kind of, show what God is doing and what he's been up to and share specific prayer requests. And so, and we welcome anyone to like join our support team. And we are currently raising some more support to be able to go. Typically, we'll meet up with people and share, but obviously during COVID, it's harder to do that. And so you
kind of just did it.
Yeah. Right. And so...
Is there a specific website that you funnel people to?
Yeah, there is. Crew has a website for us specifically for each of their missionaries. And so I'll have to pull it up. Let's see.
Something crew.
Yeah, it's give.crew.org / and then
and that's
here, hold on.
Not CREW, it's
CRU.
Give.crew.org. It's a lot of dots.
And then if you go to give.crew.org and you type in Dylan Thompson or Jessica Thompson,
there you go.
It will take you to the giving site, and then people can give one time or they can sign up to give monthly.
Awesome. And I'm sure they can get a little newsletter action there too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Could I just pray over you and your marriage and your ministry, and then we'll call it.
Love that.
That's good. Okay, I'd love to do that. I haven't actually prayed for anybody
really
on this thing before, but that just seems like what needs to happen. So we're gonna do that.
Thank you.
All right. Jesus, I thank you so much for just the unlikely story of your just unimaginable grace. I thank you so much that you've given Jessica a peek into who you are, and just a love for your character that has motivated her to follow you and just say yes to you. And I thank you for the fruit that's already come from that, the people that have been equipped in Japan, even the people from our church that have gone there to be equipped and come back changed. You are using her in bold ways to do impossible things, and that's redeem the hearts of men. And God, you've again, had this unlikely overseas, over FaceTime, this marriage that has come out of it. And I'm praying in advance already just to thanks for the ways that you will show yourself to each of them through that relationship, the ways that will try them and test them, and the things they'll go through together. I'm praying that you'll make yourself more known in all of those things, that there'll be a true power couple for the mission in Japan. I prayed for the support raising that has to happen between now and when they go back. And then I just pray that the fruit will keep falling in Japan for Jessica. I pray that any reservations, fears, idols, all these things that just stand in the way of her saying yes to you more fully, that you would just continue to remove those things. Send her back better, stronger, faster, married, all that. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, lady. Bump it. Here we go. Thank you. That's it.
Woo.
We did it.
We did it.
All right, there you have it. Thank you all for listening to the show. Thank you, Jessica, for taking time out of your schedule to come and chat with us. I hope that you are all blessed by hearing her story as much as I was. I'm always humbled by these interviews. It's always, as I said at the beginning, it's always amazing to see how the love of Christ, how Jesus making himself real to somebody motivates them to be a new person, a different person, to do things that seem scary, impossible, even unwise from the world's perspectives, because he's just that amazing. I love it. Again, if you want to support Jessica and Rachel, I encourage you to do that. Just check out give.crew.org. That's give.cru.org, and you can search just for Jessica Thompson or Dylan Thompson. You can find them there. Follow their blogs, prayerfully support them, and if you could send them some bucks to just fund what they're trying to do in Japan, that'd be awesome too. And of course, as always, if you want to support the show, the best way you can do that is just by giving it a thumbs up rating. The more people that like it on the players, the sooner it will show up as people are looking for new podcasts. And of course, share it with anybody who you think would like also listening to it. And number one, if you like the show, come on the show. Tell me your story. Everybody's interesting. Believe me, it's not as nerve-wracking as you think. People even forget they're even on the thing by the time we're done. So just come on the show. Tell me your story. I want to hear it. All right. So with that, I will see you all next time. Okay. You have stuck around. You're either anticipating some bonus materials today, or you just happen to leave your podcaster on for a little too long. And I am going to actually show you, or have you listened to something. So here's the, oh gosh, my phone's making, what is going on? So there's a thing that I'm into. I'm into outliers, like people who are capable of doing just like amazing things. It's always fascinating to me to hear somebody or see someone do something that's just like impossible. And a lot of times, like, to see somebody who dedicates themselves solely to something is just it's interesting to me, because I don't think I'm really like at elite level of goodness at any one thing. I'm all right. Like, I'm pretty good at a couple things. I'm all right at a lot of things, and I really stink at everything else. But that once in a while, you run into somebody who is just at just another level for some reason. In one department, they have spent countless hours. Like, their entire focus is on this one thing. And I fell into a YouTube hole the other day looking at beatboxers. Of all things, beatboxers. It's the crazy. And I think I may have found the best beatboxer in the world. So I'm just going to play you the audio of like 1 minute out of what this guy can do. And there's this thing in voice coaching where you can get your vocal cords to harmonize with themselves. And it sounds like you're kind of singing two notes at the same time. Like you can almost sing a chord. It's really popular, like, and actually in heavy metal singing, the guys that do that kind of voice, like there's a lot of high pitch and low pitch, like this very complicated sound. Well, you have to hear, okay, wait, what I'm going to try to play here, this guy is actually doing with his real voice. There's no effects on this. Unbelievable. That was legit zero effects on that guy's voice. He can actually do that, like with his vocal cords. I'm blown away by that. Like, it's just, how did he even discover that he could do that? I don't know. Anyway, there's not like a deeper spiritual meaning to sharing that. I just thought it would be amazing to share it. If you want to hear more of this guy's stuff, oh, he's doing it again. You can look for him. He's got an Instagram. You could look on YouTube or TikTok. It's at Verbal Ace. VERBALASE. He's got tons of videos. This guy's amazing. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because I'm fascinated by it and you're listening to my show, so I get to do what I want. Anyway, thank y'all for listening, and love each and every one of you. Appreciate your ears, and see you next time. Bye. See you later. I'm going now, for real. This time, I'm actually going. I'm clicking stop now. Actually, no. 1, 2, 3, now.